classes for kids in the neighborhood. Square One, an important preschool network, has one of its main facilities in the Old Hill. A very well-established elderly retirement community for low-income people on Mason Wright in this neighborhood. But it's also a neighborhood plagued by a lot of abandoned and vacant housing. As you can imagine, this takes its toll on the rest of the neighborhood. This building is right across the street from this lovely house. This cute cottage in the Old Hill is right next door to a boarded-up building, and right across the street from this, once a charming gingerbread house. Hap's actually going to take this on and try to rehab, and I'll tell you, it needs a lot of work, as you can see. So these are the challenges in this neighborhood. It's, the city did an assessment in 2005, and you see that the Old Hill is sort of in the center there, and all those black dots are boarded up buildings and overgrown parcels. You can see they're heavily concentrated in this neighborhood. So and it's a low-income neighborhood, and it's predominantly African American and Latino. So the kind of endemic difficulties that all minority communities in our country have are concentrated in the Old Hill as well. So in 2003, Springfield College, realizing how important the Old Hill was going to be to their survival over the years ahead, started a planning process with the Urban League, the City of Springfield, the Old Hill Neighborhood Council, and others. And they developed a vision for the neighborhood, that you would have an education corridor down the right-hand side, sort of where that star is, between Springfield College and American International. Congressman Neal was wanting to develop State Street corridor, and if you've been in Springfield, you know that State Street's seen a lot of improvements now. That's along the north side. And then those yellow blocks are basically single-family and two-family residential neighborhoods, having a lot of the buildings that you saw. So 3 nonprofits, as part of our participation, HAP Housings, got together. We were all building housing in the area, and we decided to take on the task of trying to build 100 new homes or rehabbed homes in this neighborhood over 5 years. Springfield Neighborhood Housing Services, HAP Housing, and also Greater Springfield Habitat for Humanity. And one of the things we did, which was a little unusual, is we actually formed a joint company, a land banking company called Neighborhood Collaborative LLC, and that was a vehicle to acquire properties, and then we would parcel them out for development. We got TD Bank North to grant a $1.5 million line of credit that was backed by Springfield College as a guarantor. So you saw partnerships of different institutions working together instead of competing or working on separate tracks. This is a house that Springfield Neighborhood Housing Services built, where a really wreck of a building used to stand. It's actually a single family. It looks a little like it too. Very energy efficient building. These are some modulars that they built just recently, all 3 in a row on Pendleton Ave. And through a grant that HAP was able to arrange, they got solar photovoltaic panels on the back. So here in a neighborhood that's, you know, the oldest, one of the oldest neighborhoods in the city, you're leaping ahead into the new era with photovoltaic panels and, of course, very tight energy efficient houses. A Habitat for Humanity rehab house and a couple of HAP houses. These are modest starter homes, 1,320 square feet, 3 bedrooms, bath and a half, full basement. This was built in 2006, and at the time it wasn't as common, but it has 2x6 walls. Now that's becoming like almost the low end of the spectrum, with a lot of extra insulation, more insulation in the attics, of course double glazed windows. We've kept working on our insulation schemes. This was what we were using back then, and it was just sort of more fiberglass. Now we're getting into, of course, dense packed cellulose, open cell spray foam for sealing the buildings. We're doing different things in different buildings here, but it keeps evolving, and our specifications to our builders are getting more precise, as everyone's are, about air sealing, about how you do the flashing around the windows and so forth. We're using high-efficiency gas-fired furnaces, and usually with a combination in the hot water system. This is a Viessmann wall-mounted unit. The 95.2 annual fuel utilization efficiency. If any of you know building stuff, or heating systems, that's very good. That means you're basically generating, you're taking advantage of 95% of the heat that's in the fuel. And double glazed windows, this actually is a ringer from Wisdom Way Solar Village, a triple glazed window. That's why that U value is down there. We haven't quite ponied up for this kind of window, but if you haven't seen their project, there's exhibition photos on that. And then the city worked outside the realm of housing. The city did a lot of street renovations, playground renovations, new street lights, tree plantings, demolition of buildings. This is the kind of joint focus that you need to revitalize a neighborhood. And we formed an umbrella organization, the Partnership for the Renewal of Old Hill, with about 45 different groups to work on advocacy around crime, to do joint block parties and different events. And well, the challenge there as always, is resources and organizational time to keep coalitions like that going. I know Catherine knows this well from the Sustainability Network. So there were a lot of positive lessons that we learned over the 5 years. You got to create a vision and build a strategy. I'm not sure our strategy is as tight. What are the steps to get there? To realize that vision. Creating partnerships, we've been pretty good at that. Looking for municipal players, larger funders, bigger businesses, as well as all the community groups and residents, and getting them involved. And I'd say, we didn't know this now, but 5 years was just going to be the beginning. And I think all of us have to, as urgent as the task is, we also have to take the long view about the changes that we're going to be making. And let me skip to the last point, which I think we overlook sometimes. It's not just about physical projects. It's really about building connections between the people in the neighborhood. And we're kind of coming full circle back to that, because we realize that the neighbors are not connected enough. And if the neighbors aren't connected, it's easier for them to turn their back when there's problems that another neighbor is facing, or break-in happening, or crime on the streets, and so forth. And I want to touch, before I end, on two downsides, the issues I mentioned at the beginning: street crime and public safety, and the financial context in which housing occurs. There's, like all of our urban neighborhoods, crime is sort of endemic, and I have intuitions about this. This is not my area of expertise, but when you look, I just threw Northampton as a comparison, and not by way of any judgment, but there's double the unemployment in Springfield. The income is so low. The percent in poverty, I didn't even know this, 27%. That's just astounding to me. And of course, educational levels are low, which ties up with the income and the unemployment. My sense is that young people in this situation are much more likely to turn to drug dealing, to gangs, to criminal activities of various sorts. And a lot of the crime in Springfield, to me, when I read the arrest records, looks tied to the drug trafficking that comes into poor neighborhoods, because it's the one business that's functioning there, at a high level. So I think we're going to have to look at the bigger issues of employment, education, and so on, in order to make our communities sustainable. And finally, we'll have to address the political economic framework. I had 7 new houses lined up to start construction in September 2008, and we had to pull the plug on all of them. Why? Because the people who have been running Wall Street and the financial system were completely irresponsible. They have for 15 years, this is a foreclosed house just down the street from our new house. Now, that's not going to coexist. That undermines the positive work you do. And it's because and I go into foreclosed buildings all the time. I mean, when you see scattered kids' toys and know that the disruption of someone's life that a foreclosure means, it's just heartbreaking. This has taken a long time, being deliberately planned. This is not an accident. This is the deregulation that has been built for 15 years by the powers that be. And there's a lot of politics in this. We are going to have to change this.